Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Srini here, and today we are going to talk about Xpath Access and Selenium. So if you're new to this channel, I would strongly recommend to subscribe to this channel as you'll be getting free tutorials on Selenium, Java, Python, API automation, and even robotic process automation. So here we discuss a lot of concepts in detail, and I show a practical session as well in the same video as to how to go about a particular topic. So today's topic is on Xpath Access. It's a very important topic, not just from a project perspective, but even from an interview perspective. This is a very important interview question I have come across, and even I have taken a lot of interviews where this particular question is my favorite. So Xpath Access, as the name suggests, right, it's something different. It's not like a normal Xpath. So what exactly is difference here between this and the normal Xpath? So you might be aware of Xpath. If not, you can go over my videos on Xpath in my playlist of Selenium. So Xpath, we have two types, right? We have absolute and relative Xpath. Now, often what we can see is that a particular web application, it could be dynamic, and the applications are like dynamic in nature, and they may not have ID, name, class, of those common element identifier types, right? So in that situation, we have to think of something different, not like a normal XPath, which we can normally form by taking a relative reference with respect to ID, class, or some other type of identifier. So here, the concept or the important part we need to understand is XPath access. So XPath access means identifying elements with respect to the current element, which may be on the same line. Example, like if you have a HTML page, right, you could try to find some elements which are lying on the same row, or maybe the top row, or maybe the row above. So it's something with respect to the reference, with respect to the axis on which the element is lying. The axis, like the x-axis and the y-axis, what we call about in mathematics, right? So if you would want to find out an element with respect to a particular coordinate of an element, then we would be using XPath access. So there are different ways we can find out an element with respect to the mentioned element, and those ways are mentioned here. So we can come to the practical part. So we have something called sibling. If we would want to find out an element lying on the same level as the current element, ancestor, as the name suggests, right, it could be the ancestor of the current element. Following means what is the elements following this current element. Preceding, what are the elements preceding this current element. Child, what are the elements which are the children of the current element, means the current element becomes the parent. Preceding sibling means before this element, what are the preceding siblings for this element. And then we have following sibling. Following this element, what are the siblings which are there at the same level. Then we have parent, as we have talked about. We have descendant, means what are the descendants of this particular element. Self means the same element or the current element. Now there are a couple of websites for which I would recommend you all to go about and practice this. There are many other websites which you can find in the internet, but I have practiced and I've seen these websites are good enough examples to practice these concepts. So let's look at this now. So the first thing is that we need to have a WebDriver variable. So I'm creating an instance of WebDriver, and also just to give you all an idea, you need to have the libraries which are there for Selenium as a part of your project. If you have not imported it already, you can look at the previous tutorials as well, but just to give you all an idea of what I'm talking about, you can go to build path and you have to import the jars for your Selenium. So you could see here that these are the different jars I'm having already imported in my Selenium project. So you need to have that. You need to at least have the Selenium server standalone and few other supporting jars to get started with. And the other POI are for Excel interaction. But I generally import all the jars which are required for Selenium into the project so that I can do any tutorials for the same project. Yeah, so let's get started. So you need to have a WebDriver variable here, and you need to first understand which particular browser you're using. So I'm going to use Chrome browser for this particular tutorial. So I need to have the Chrome driver initialized. But before we even initialize the Chrome driver, we have to set up the system set property. So it has to be with the value what we need to initialize for our Chrome driver. And I have my Chrome driver path available here. I just have to put the path. Okay. So after set the system property, now the next step is that we can initialize the driver. I'm going to go for new Chrome driver since I've already set the property. Okay, and now we can get started with our actual testing. So let's create a variable called application, and let's just copy this URL into that. So we are going to look at this particular URL. So this is basically like going to give you the daily stocks available in the market and what is the price going on. So I'll just show you all how it looks like. So I'll open Chrome and I'll just quickly show to you all what is this website all about. So if you could see here that this website is having lot of stocks mentioned here, right? And every stock is having a price mentioned, what was the previous closing price, what is the current price going on, what was the percentage change. It's like a live website, a lot of changes happening dynamically, right? So I'm currently in the BSC, you can go for NSC or other index as well. Now here is what we want to do. We want to go to a particular, let's say that we are talking about SBI life insurance as an example. We want to find out what is the price or what are the elements which are, previous to this particular element, SBI life insurance, or what are the elements following this life insurance. Like we have these following. So let's look at it one by one. So first let's look at self. In XPath access, we want to find out what is the current element. So let's first look at a very simple XPath access method, that is self. So I'm just going to mention self example. Okay. So now what we're going to do, we are going to launch this website. So we have to use driver.get and we have to give application. So website will be launched. We have to do few things just to set up the basic logistics part. So manage window, and I want to maximize it. Then I want to mention the implicit and the explicit timeouts. So I'm going to set an implicit timeout of 10 seconds, which is like too much, but let's just set up a maximum of 10 seconds. It will wait and then it will get timed out. I'll go for the page load timeout as well. This is like you can give your own values. You can give it in milliseconds or seconds. So just as an example, I'm giving in seconds. Right, so we have given the implicit and the page load timeout. We have launched the application, we have maximized it. Now we are all set to find out what happens when we want to do a self example, right? So let's say we want to take this SBI life insurance. First, you can inspect the element. So I'll go for function F12, and you can just inspect this element using this inspector. So we want to find the XPath now. Let's assume that this did not had a specific way of reaching out to be maybe like having ID class. So there is no ID class, name, anything here, right? It just is having an anchor tag. But imagine that there are a lot of links which are available on the current page with the same name. Then it becomes too tough to use the link text or the partial link text, because you're going to have exact name for multiple elements. So you want to traverse either upwards or find out what is the right XPath I want to use from a relative XPath perspective. So let's find out how we can form this XPath. So I'm just going to copy this text now. Okay. So I'm just going to start off with this way. I'm going to use contains method now. And I'm going to use this text and mention I just don't want spaces here. So I'm going to use contains method. That's it. This particular term I want to be highlighted, and I've highlighted that. If you see, this is the XPath which is pointing to that particular element. The first XPath access we're going to talk about is self, just to get started with. So the way to use the XPath access is that you have to first find the XPath, how you're going to locate to the element. You can use any of the methods like starts with, using XPath starts with, you can use ends with, you can use contains text, you can go for your normal relative XPath. Let's say we go for this particular XPath. You have to put a /, mention self keyword as it is in small abbreviation, just put double colon and mention what is the type of the element. So this element is anchor tag, so just mention A. So there it is. This is the way you can find out the XPath access for self. So I'm going to find the element. I'm going to go for XPath, put the entire value here. That is it. Now what you want to do with it, right? You have found the element. You want to do something with it, like click it? No, we just want to store it. So I'm just going to store it into a web element, and I'm going to doc this as SBI Life, and just import this web element. So we have found out the element, which is an example of self. What we want to do with it, right? We want to print or get the text. So I will say the text. So use SBI Live dot get text. So it's going to give me the text of that particular element. So this is the way to find out the self. Right? Now let's look at the other example. Let's look at parent. We're just going to go one step at a time. So let's look at parent now. Okay, so for parent, we just have to say parent. Okay, what is the parent for this anchor tag? Look at the HTML structure. The one which is ahead on top of that A is TD, right? So I have to use the same syntax /parent double colon and then say TD. So it has highlighted that TD. If you just enter, it has highlighted that SBI Life Insurance cell that is called TD, because TD represents a cell and TR is for the row, right? But if we were to go for any other parent, let's say TR, is it able to highlight? No, because it's not a parent. The immediate parent is TD, not TR. TR will become ancestor. It will not become parent, it will become ancestor. So instead of parent, if I were to say ancestor, look at that, it is able to get back to its TR because it's the ancestor, not the parent, right? So let's now look at example of parent here. It's TD. So this is the example of going back to the cell of your current element. So I'm just going to copy my XPath here and just going to use this XPath method. So this is just a session to show you all how to identify XPath access and use it in your application, right? And you have to rename it. So I'm going to say SPI cell and use this particular one and get the text. Of course, it's going to give the same text because both belong to the same TD here. Now let's look at other example. Let's look at ancestor. Okay. Let's look at ancestor. Let's copy this for the time being, and we would have to change the XPath. So I'll say SBI ancestors. The reason I'm saying ancestors, you will just understand in a while. If that particular ancestor is leading to more than one element, then it will become ancestor. It will become ancestors because there are multiple, more than one. So if I were to say TR, it is currently showing only one because this particular cell which I'm currently on is having only one ancestor. Okay, now let's understand for this particular row now, right? For this particular row, right? What will be the ancestor? Now we are currently on this particular row number. If you see here, it is highlighting this TR and this is shown in yellow color. I can again use the XPath access. Again, I can say ancestor. Right? I can again say ancestor. Now, I want to see what particular element I want to give. TR is not there. Let's go for T body. T body is there because you are currently on this particular row. For this row, the ancestor will be T body, which is the entire content of the table. So I would not want to go to its ancestor first. Let's say I want to go to its parent. I want to go to its TD, right? So what has happened? I've gone to its parent, which is TD. And for the TD, I want to go to the ancestor. Now, let's look at what is going to be the elements. So it's going to give me this particular element TR, right? So this is the way how you can get the ancestor for the current element. So there is this one ancestor in this example. So I'm just going to put the XPath for the ancestor, right? This is the way how you find out an ancestor, and I'm going to find out ancestor get text, and this was parent get text. Now let's look at a couple of examples more, and then we'll cover the part 2 in our next session. So let's look at one more example, and in this case, let's say what we would want to go for. So we have already seen self, parent, and ancestor in this particular session. Let's go for preceding sibling. Yeah, so this is going to be a good example. Preceding sibling means before this element, what are the siblings which are there? So let's look at this one. Okay, so we are currently at this particular row. Now we want to find out the preceding sibling. As the syntax goes, put a forward slash, put preceding sibling, again double colon. Now preceding sibling of what? It's at the TR level. Let's go for TR. Yeah, so you could see here that in this particular website, SBI Life Insurance is at this particular row. Preceding sibling, it is showing 5. Let's see which are those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these 5 rows represent the preceding sibling which are in front or before SBI Life Insurance row comes. So these 5 rows it's going to highlight. So if I want to store these particular elements and retrieve their content one by one, I will have to store it in some collection, right? So we are going to use list for the same. So what we are going to do, first we are going to store this Xpath for preceding sibling. Here store the Xpath. Store the Xpath here in this particular line, and here I will say SBI preceding sibling. And I am not yet done for printing the get text because this will come within a iteration or a loop. The reason is because this is not just one element. I have to say find elements now because it's going to return more than one element. If you look at this row number, it is 1 of 5. It is not just 1 of 1, it is 1 of 5. So we have to use find elements here. So you have to use find elements here, and this has to be stored into a list or some collection type, right? Because you're finding elements here. So it's even telling a suggestion here that you have to use a list. So what we're going to do, it's a list of what? It's a list of elements, because every find elements when we do, whatever we get is a list of web elements, right? And we are storing this into this particular list name. We are going to import this java.util list. Okay, so we have now stored it into a list. Now what do you want to do with this particular list? You would want to iterate it, right? So you have to use a iterator. So if you have not gone over my Java tutorials, I'll be creating a session on collections, so you can go over the tutorial and I'll explain you about how to use list and other different types like hash map, hash table. So you can just go over that. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to use this particular value dot iterator. So this is how we would want to iterate it, but it is also going to be iterating over the type of web elements. So you would want to put that type in the iterator, and you just have to import this java.util. So you are now going to store it into itr variable, and you have to use a while loop to iterate over this value. So you have to say while this particular variable has some value, so has next is a method we use to check if it is having more values, and each particular value is considered to be an element. So I'm just going to say element equal to itr.next. So every time we try to iterate, whatever we get in next is going to be an element, and I would want to print that. So I'm going to say element get text is element dot get text. Right? So we have looked at this particular example now. We don't need this line anymore. So this is what we're going to cover in today's session. We have seen self, parent, ancestor, which was a single element, but preceding sibling is going to give you a list of elements. So how do you store it? We have seen that we have stored it in a collection of using list, and then we are going to iterate it using iterator, and then we are going to get it one by one using the get text. So let's run this program and let's look at what we get in the get text. launching application. So it has maximized it, and now it's going to find out the elements whatever was there on the website. See, this particular website will change dynamically, so you cannot expect your script to work each and every time, because sometimes the stock might be at the top, sometimes the stock might not be there in the top gainer, or it might be there in the top loser. So it will vary. So you have to use different websites if you want to have a stable website where you can practice it thoroughly. You can go for some other websites which are demo websites available in the internet and practice with it. But for the time being, I've used this website. Now, if you can see, ahead of SBI Life Insurance, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stocks. Before this, we saw there were 5. But still, it will be able to do our job because we have used preceding siblings. So, whatever may be the number of rows, it is going to retrieve the content. So, let's look at the example. Yeah. So, now you can look at the example. SBI Life Insurance, self get text is SBI Life Insurance. This was for self. For parent, it was a TD. Again, it will be the same text. For ancestor, it was TR. Again, it's going to be the same text. But look at the preceding sibling example. It's going to give you stock by stock the entire row content. So you can see Reliance Infrastructure, Reliance Power Limited, Reliance Capital, IFCI, 1% Beverage, Dilip Build Pond Limited. So all these values are printed cell by cell. The entire values are printed. So that's all about today's tutorial session. Hope you liked it. If you have not subscribed to my channel yet, I would strongly recommend you can go ahead and subscribe it and hit the bell to get notifications of much more upcoming videos. So in the next session, we are going to look at the other types of XPath access, and we'll also look at the other ways of finding XPath. That is, XPath starts with, ends with, contains in detail. So stay tuned and do watch my videos. Thank you so much.